Welcome everybody. My name is Matthew Emerson. I'm just helping out as the MC tonight. IWOC member for a few years now. Just love to see change in the community. I'm doing a lot of work towards finding ways to bring people home, right? And by any means necessary. So I definitely want to just start by introducing, this is Commissioner Schnell. If anyone has Commissioner Paul Schnell. If anyone hasn't met him, welcome, Commissioner. We're going to have a few other speakers tonight. Let's see, we are going to have Delonte, Trina, Dr. Raj just gave us that excellent grounding. I don't see him.
He's been back.
Yeah, Rochelle and a few other folks. And so, yeah, we just want to welcome everyone to this meeting on this new initiative and policy. So I think we could start by talking about some of our past work with IWOC and the Department of Corrections. It's been a long road. I would say the last time I was in this room was in 2019. I was on ISR, and a group of community members such as ourselves gathered together, and the DOC gave us space. And we talked about technical violations and how that impacts our community. And there was a big change that was made from that meeting because the DOC was there, they listened, the community was heard, and now the DOC looks at technical violations in a big way, differently. Some people like that, some people don't, but it's reduced our prison population by over 1,500 since 2019. And so that's work that was done together. It was no one person, and I think that's amazing. And we definitely want to give some props for the system for changing. I think about that work. I think about some of the other policy groups that IWOC has participated in, and just the daily work of just, getting a phone call from somebody in prison and trying to find a solution to bring families closer together as fast as possible. And that's one of the reasons why I'm proud to be a part of this work. And that's one of the reasons why I continue this work still today in any face of adversity. And that's important to fight for the community. So what's the next section we're going to?
Do you want to do agreements, or should we bring up our speakers? Do you want to do agreements first? If anyone does not have this is the slideshow because we're not going to project it. It's on the counter if people want to go grab one. And maybe if someone could grab one for the commissioner as well, that would be useful. But the agreements are just.
Okay. So, yeah. So I'm just going to just lay out just 3 agreements for everyone here. So one of the agreements is in this space, our goal is to bring problems and solutions. It's important to think about the solutions as we illustrate and articulate our problems. Because for every problem, we need a solution in order to advance. Also, we ask that everyone respects each other in whatever that means to you and whatever that means to the group. And also, it's very important that we acknowledge all the harm that has been done before and the harm that is caused in this system. And so those are our 3 main agreements. And so we just would like to ask everyone to look at that. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna shoot over to Lantis. She is on Zoom. And so I'm gonna have to ask Lantis to speak up so these people can hear you.
And if anyone wants to come see her, you can come stand here if you want to come see her. Because it's
hello, can everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can they hear me as well over there?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes. Can David and those guys hear me? That's what I want to know.
We can hear you as best we can.
Okay. So, hi, my name's Lantis Thomas. I'm going to be reading a letter from my uncle, Delonte, who's currently incarcerated at Rush City. His letter just explains why he feels the work release expansion with MRRA will be beneficial to those incarcerated. So, hello, my name is Delonte Thomas. I'm 28. I'm writing from MCF Rush City to explain why the work release expansion with MRRA would benefit so many of us incarcerated. The work release expansion with MRRA would actually save lives. I personally have seen people perish mentally and physically, and it has been a horrible sight to see. During these long periods of time, we become forgotten, dismissed, and just mere thoughts of the past. We lose our support, our loved ones, kids grow older, and we become more broken. Correct, we committed crimes, but sometimes we are either caught up in the life, becoming blind to our mistakes, lacking the cognitive skills, and lose emotional awareness until the point we're almost navigating the globe blinded, dead, and misguided. And sometimes it's just one bad night. Sometimes it takes for everything to be stripped from us to actually understand what we lost. And prison does a great job at diminishing a person, breaking them down to our most vulnerable selves. And we have to rebuild on our own, and some people just continue falling. Derek Catchings was a friend of mine since we were children. He was sentenced to 35 years, then killed himself 11 years in. At the age of 26, my brother couldn't take it, and I understand his pain all too well. It was not more programs he needed. It was not a better job, and he had a great support system. That man, just like many others, wanted to go home. He was tired. He wanted his liberty. Although we don't have life, it feels like it. This journey feels like it never ends. I personally go through those emotional roller coasters as well. I complete almost every program put on the board, but it can never be enough. I want to go home. I want to hug my son I haven't seen in years. I want to work a real job. I want to have a wife. I want to be able to chase my dreams when the limitation is just me. And after this, I don't see me holding myself back or returning to a life that practically killed me. I wouldn't expect people that never experience either side of our lifestyle to understand. All they see is bad people that can't be rehabilitated. From birth, we were meant to struggle, and these are the results when we don't have the proper help. And your system only can help so much before it eventually destroys us all over again. When I was 19, they told me, you'll go home at 37. You'll still be young. 9 years later, I've never been so emotionally confused, so fragile, so empty, so alone around hundreds. Prison is not capable of providing the incentives we need to become whole. After we've completed programs and with such a significant amount of time, we're just stuck, constantly growing older, losing loved ones, letting the world pass us by. We can't fix this entirely. We can at least slow it down and give people a righteous chance at life. Recidivism is always a worry, but it's something you can't stop and it won't stop. But it's not meant for us to be judged entirely when we are our own individuals with separate goals in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. That was well said.
That was good. That was beautiful. That was good.
Almost
Yeah,
dropped tears.
that's just a letter I asked my uncle to write for today's meeting. So those are his words.
Brought tears.
Matthew, can you unmute?
For 16 years now. And he's trying to make efforts to come home. He's trying to put his supports together so when he gets out, he'll be able to just get reconnected with the community. Mr. Commissioner, one thing I wanted to say to you is thank you for being here and listening. I've never had this chance before, so thank you. The other thing I want to say to you is being a person who has the criminal justice system has affected and affects my life in more than one way. I shared with you all about my daughter being murdered. And I worked with the police. This happened in Georgia. And I was diligent about finding out who murdered my daughter. She was an innocent victim of a drive-by shooting. But she had me as a mama And I made sure I got on the police nerves. When one sergeant cussed me out, that's okay. I told him I'd fill your parking lot with protesters. Either you hear me now or you'll hear me on the news. And that's not an idle threat, and I don't like doing that to people. But this was my daughter and my responsibility to make sure that I advocated for her. So you understand victims' perspectives. But like I said, I have a son that's incarcerated. And my son, the proudest moment for a parent was my son coming to me and saying, Mom, I did this. I've got kids out here in the world that I want to see again. And I'm going to turn myself in and I'm going to do my time. And I'm going to take advantage of everything that they have to offer. And if you look up David Lawrence Hodges, you will see that just about every program, every class, every therapy that you got to offer, he has taken and has a certificate to show it. You know, my son, I think him going, this is his second stunt, but this has been the longest one. And he's got 9 that I know of children. Okay, they need him, and he understands that. And it's like his children haven't seen him in almost 2 decades now, and it's affecting them. It's been about 15 years, so a little over a decade and a half. But I don't want them to grow up and because they didn't get the support or they struggled through this journey with him. I don't want them to end up in the facilities unless they're working there by choice. You know, I think that we need to invest as much money that we can for support for the reentry program. I believe that when people show that they're willing to put in the work, and you ain't got to tell them to do the work, you just got to tell them what they need to do. You know, they do it if they're serious. Okay? If they're not serious, they're not going to do the work. But we're not talking about those people today. We're talking about the people that actually want to come home and be successful and not return to the DOC unless it's for some type of mentoring or some type of employment. That is it, you know? And I think the best way to encourage a lot of people is to implement this program. And the ones that have been successful with it, let them come back and talk to the inmates that are, you know, not where they're at, but let them see that there is hope and it can be done. And Commissioner, one thing, and I'm honest, I'm transparent. I was a teenage girl. I had been molested and raped since I was 4 years old, okay? I had my first child, I became pregnant at 12. I had my first child at 13. I had 3 by the time I was 16. And the last one was from a rape of a family member, okay? But that should have made me angry. That should have made me hate the world. I got in trouble one time with the law, and that was for prostitution because I had ran away, got mixed in with the wrong folks, and made me put my butt on the grill. Okay? I got caught by plainclothes officer, and that was the best day of my life. The best day of my life because instead of giving me time, the judge that I had gave me an opportunity to get my shit together. And they gave me, excuse my language, that judge gave me a chance to get some support. And the first thing she told me was, you're gonna get some counseling. And I'm gonna get you a place to live. I'm gonna get you a social worker and a case manager. And I had that. I was raised in foster care a lot too. And had it not been for those people coming together and helping me, I would have been an inmate on your facilities and not an officer. I was never written up as an officer, never broke any rules or infractions. I did report officers for misconduct. And I was kind of forced out because they were harassing me. But I knew at the end of the day that I did the right thing for the facility, for the reputation of the DOC and the state of Minnesota, and for the community. And I did the right thing for the people that we're there to protect. It's for society and for them, but it's still human beings. And I don't get to choose what punishment they get. The court, the jury, and our justice system has determined all of that. So officers should never be betting on how many inmates they can set off. So the SAG administrative SAG, if none of you know, is at least 6 months to a year if it's a fraction on an officer, or it could be longer. Okay, so anyways, I'm gonna wrap up my time, but even if we can reduce, I have a high goal, at least 50%, you know, and we can get as many people on work release with as the law dictates it, okay? And people will show you if they're serious because they're gonna do the work because they want to get home. My grandbabies need their father, and he's matured. He's done the work. He has even talked to me about his victim and what he owes them, you know? So my son, I think he'll be a great candidate when he's ready this time. But I'm just asking you for your consideration because there's more than just one need. And I've worked with adult developmental disabilities. I've been a house manager. I've worked with abused and neglected children. I've worked with teenage girls who are single moms. And I've given back to my community and in more than one state: New York, New Jersey, Georgia, Iowa, Minnesota. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trina. Appreciate you very much for sharing. Rochelle is next to speak. Where's Rochelle?
So I met David on Thursday, we met Thursday. So my nonprofit organization was having a mixer. We were getting to know the businesses in the area. Me and David had a conversation for like an hour, and I told him like my whole life story, and I don't know why. I was like, I went to jail, I did this, I did. He was like, what? And he was like, I'm going to meet the commissioner. Da, 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 would you like to go? I was like, what? So I'm here. So I'm Rochelle Washington. My father did 14 years and 9 months in prison. When my father got out of prison, I met with his parole officer. And she said, your father has 30 days to find a job, to find a place, and to get a vehicle. Because whenever I tell him wherever I need to meet him, he needs to come to me because I'm not coming to him. I said, okay, Dad, we got work to do. I said, let's figure it out. My dad is from North Minneapolis, but they sent him to a hotel in Farmington where there was no Black people.
Oh, yeah.
Mind you, my dad was 6'4", about 315 pounds, solid muscle, dreads all the way down to his butt. Gorgeous. Just beautiful. So I was currently going to school for accounting. And I changed my degree from accounting to criminal justice. My father, I spent the night that he got out of prison, he laid on the ground when I woke up. Me and my 2 kids at the time slept in the bed with him. We had a king size bed. But when I woke up, he wasn't in the bed next to me. And when I got on the floor to walk to go see where he was, I stepped on him. And he stood up with like a toothbrush in his hand. And he started swinging it like a shank. I was like, oh my God, Dad, like, it's me, it's your daughter. Like, you're not in prison no more. It's okay, it's okay. And he sat there and cried like big baby. And I was like, I want to do everything that I can to help this man become successful. And so that's why I'm doing the work that I do now. So my dad had been in the criminal justice system since the age of 17 until the age of 54 when he passed away. My mom had a criminal record as well too. So me going to jail, going to prison, it only took me one time to figure out that wasn't for me. I said, this is going to stop right here. I don't want any of my children to have a criminal record. I don't want any of my children to be in jail. And I want my children to be able to make their own path. So when I went to prison, I had already pre-registered for school, not knowing that I was going to jail. So when I got to jail, they called and verified everybody, like the school, the place of employment I was working at the time, and they let me get out to finish my degree. Wow. I took 22 credits. Y'all know how many classes that is.
That's a lot.
While I was in prison on work release, I would get up every morning at 4:30 in the morning, get up and get dressed, go to school, handle my business, go back to the jail, go back to sleep, got back up, did it every day, Monday through Friday until I finished up. I got my bachelor's degree and started my master's.
Wow. Yeah.
And now I own 3 businesses, 2 nonprofits that take African American people to Africa. Whoa. And for me, had I not went to college, had I not went to school, had I not got that opportunity to do the work release, I'd be different. Right. I'd still be chasing those other dreams that I knew that were locally to me and not knowing about the whole world around me. Yeah. Like now I'm able to give more to the people that are around me, to my family, to my community. I have 4 children now. I've got a 26-year-old, 21-year-old, 6-year-old twins, don't judge me. I wanted to see if I still had it. I don't know. Apparently I never lost it, but none of them have a criminal record and all they're doing, everybody's doing everything on their own. They're business owners, they're home owners, they're building generational wealth. If it wasn't for me to change that cycle for me and my baby. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Rochelle. Now I want to ask Walt to come over and speak a little bit on the proposals or how we understand the work release policy and statute.
Again, we want to thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. Paul, as you graciously said, we can call you. So thank you for being here today. Thank you all, you guys, for your wonderful stories. They're great. It's life. That young man that just came in, we've been praying for you a long time. Long time. A long time. Me, myself, I have never been in prison. I went to the University of Minnesota on a football scholarship. I coached a long time in North Minneapolis. That's where I know you from. Young men just like you, who been in a situation and then gone for a long time, but sat there and did the right thing to get yourself out. Again, like I said, we prayed for you. I'm in a situation right now with my grandchild, who is in Lionel Lakes right now. Right now. I love my grandchild. He was raised the right way. a smart young man, educated. He's in there right now getting his college degree. Right now. So Commissioner, I'm just here to make sure everybody is aware of what's out there in the way of the statute, what's out there in the way of what work release is all about. But I guarantee you, Paul, there are people who are incarcerated, young men, young women, who, yeah, they made a mistake, but they want to change that around. All they need is an opportunity. They talk in the news every day about public safety. We all care about public safety. We do. But we also want to give those who have made a mistake an opportunity to show this world, to show themselves, to show us as family members that they can do this. They're encouraged, they want to be incentivized to do this so they can be at home with their family, doing the right thing, being productive citizens in this country. Thank you for being here. As far as the work release statute is concerned, it's Minnesota Statute 244.065 subdivision 1. When consistent with the public interest and public safety, the Commissioner of Correction, his name is Paul, may conditionally release an inmate to work at a paid employment, seek employment, or participate in vocational training or educational program as provided in section 241.26. If the inmate has served at least one half of his term of imprisonment. Now, how does work release work? People are guaranteed supervised housing, the halfway house, county jails, or county approved housing, who are paid by the DOC to house and supervise participants. People find work or go to college or vocational training, get work experience, transportation, occur savings, and acquire or make other key life skills and plans. People make real wages, which they keep, and no more than $10 a day for rent can be charged once they have a job. And less than 1 in 500 commit a new crime on work release. And with that being said, Commissioner, we're not about that they are not held accountable. So if they go out there and commit another crime while on work release, that's shame on them. We're looking for the ones who said, yep, made my mistake, I want change. I'm not doing that again. So public safety, we're all for it. If they blow it, they blow it. But if they work for it, we work with it. Now, big difference in the policy versus statute. Currently, DOC policy doesn't allow more than 1 year of work release. So 1 year before they are entitled to the work release. As of April 2021, 75% of those incarcerated were eligible under the time requirement of half of their term of imprisonment, and 20% have done half of their time and have a low risk score according to DOC's 2 MnSTAR. Now, the benefits, of course, of work release, and there's a fact sheet attached to the readout, please check it. But certainly putting low risk people at work, college or vocational training, dramatically reducing reentry to the homelessness, reducing crime and prison violence, both to inmates and to correctional officers. But yeah, that hurt us to see that lady correctional officer in Oak Park Heights to be hurt like that. So yeah, we wanted to be incentivized that, yeah, you do this right, you get an opportunity to do this. Addressing staffing and capacity issues, expanding college success with Pell Grant expansion, as mentioned by the Commissioner, create an incentive for change and align with and to ensure the reentry and in prison success with the MRRA. It saves money in tax dollars, and staff at work release sites not work release agents, do the vast majority of individual supervision. So again, check the attachment goes along with this. We got a great thing, a great opportunity going. Again, thank you for listening, because that's where it starts. We can't make change without the people in power positions being able to listen to us and make those changes. Hey, love you, bro.
I'm gonna just chime in one thing. One thing the DOC has done, which we appreciate, is that they've put a lifer out at 18 months instead of 12 months, maybe multiple. And they've allowed people to attend college on the semester over that 12-year mark. So we do appreciate them customizing it for people beyond that policy. And we're hopeful that we can add that to the policy as well.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for speaking. I want to give a rundown of what the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Reinvestment Act is looking like. So this is a initiative that provides an opportunity, as represented by the DOC, as an incentive, as a 16% time reduction for people that participate in programming while in prison. I look towards my personal experience with incarceration, and when I got to the intake facility in St. Cloud, how challenging it was to navigate this system, and the fatality of having a 9.5-year prison sentence in front of me, and thinking about the next 9.5 years of my life and what that's going to look like, and the reality that there is no escape or anything like that for me to comprehend at that time. And so the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Reinvestment Act is an opportunity for, in those formative first 90 to 120 to 180 days of incarceration, to really organize an individual in a path that would provide an opportunity for program investment, for engagement in things inside the facility that are really going to set you up for the next duration of that sentence. So this isn't a replacement of the current incarceration system, but more of a reduction of the harm that it causes. And that's kind of, from my perspective, it's like, well, something is better than nothing, right? And so, so that's how we look at it. And so this creates an individualized rehabilitation plan from which you can earn early release, and also provides an 11% reduction in supervision, 1 month for every 2 months in compliance. And so for me, when I make it personal, this is an incentive when I first get to prison to not go off and start fighting the first person that looks at me funny. And those things are very important, because from my personal experience with incarceration, the majority of people, they set their path in the beginning of their sentence. They got into a fight within the first 30 days, within the first 180 days of coming to prison. And that caused them to go down a whole strenuous road that they could have avoided. And I had to avoid that in ways of allowing people to call me out my name. You know what I'm saying? And doing things like that. But with that, I ended up able to take a correspondence class with St. Cloud State University. I ended up getting enrolled into a technical college program with Pine State University. I ended up earning enough credits to get an associate's degree at Lake Superior College in northern Minnesota. And I also earned myself the opportunity at the Challenge Incarceration Program and getting out after 33% of my time. And I had to stay focused that whole time, every single day. And the people that were around me were encouraging me to go off of that focus. And so that's why we want to have an incentive for folks to really say, okay, all of us, hey, let's all go together. Let's all go together, you know, and build each other up, not take them down. And so this is where we want to see reinvestment and savings across the system, split evenly to victim services, counties, DOC, and Minnesota's general fund. And there's a huge opportunity here for all taxpaying citizens in Minnesota and every single prisoner. in some way can be affected by this new opportunity.
And should we recognize that the commissioner's been working on this for 5 years?
Oh, yeah. Let's give a round of
Like,
applause.
seriously. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's in both omnibuses, but yeah, let's make sure it passes.
I have a question.
Hey, David, can you mute Beverly Austin because she's been making a lot of noise in the background?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
1 second here. And we're not quite ready for questions, Adam, but we will get there. Do you want to talk more about this, Matt?
Oh, you could go ahead.
Okay, so just a couple opportunities with the MRA that people should know about. So it is, once it passes, and we got to make sure it passes. So if there's anything we can do, Commissioner, make sure it passes, we will. It will be retroactive. Okay? And like Matt says, there's 2 types of credits. There's compliance credits, that's on supervision, where you can earn 2 for 1, and there's release credits. The release credits, again, can shrink your sentence by up to a quarter, from 67% to 50%, but it's not specified yet how those credits are going to be earned. Okay? And right now in the bill, it goes in effect August 1st, but they don't have to have a plan for everyone until January 1st, 2025. So there's a window between when it passes this August and when it has to be all set up in January of 2025, where we're not sure if people are going to earn those credits back. And so that's something we're going to want to ask the commissioner about today, is how do we make sure that those people who've already put in their work, who've worked for decades maybe, don't get their early release cut because we can't figure out how to plan it. So that's a question we're going to have. And looking at numbers from April 2021, that's at least 1,297 people could have earned some early release there. Did they all? I don't know how many people did their work. You know what I mean? But that's a lot of people that we're talking about. There's also some really good alignments between MRA and work release. If I could see the screen. Yeah, let me do it here. I don't want to say the wrong thing, y'all. Work release can be part of people's MRA plans. So you can know that you can set yourself up to get out and go to college. Or you can set yourself up for your transition so that as you're earning early release, you're also making sure that you're set up to succeed. MRA is also a great opportunity to change how the prison does lots of things like treatment and custody levels, rules, programming access, like Matt mentioned, so that people can actually earn this. It's also a great opportunity to tell the community, hey, this is time to help people in prison, right? This is the time to reach in and to make sure that we set up people to succeed. And also, people can, if necessary, do treatment or other programming on work release. So if there's not the opportunity for people to do those necessary programs in the community, they could do that on work release, particularly if we expand the work release, but also in the current setup. And was really appreciated that the commissioner mentioned that that was something that they're already thinking about. So those are some really good overlaps. I also want us to make sure we know what this looks like. So if people have this sheet, I just want to make sure people understand what we're talking about sentencing wise, just so we can see it visually, because we all hear earn early release and that's good. You know what I mean? We definitely want that. Thank you. But we also want to see what it means. So just quickly, you'll see determinate sentencing under Minnesota law. I don't know if y'all can, I don't know if y'all want to, everyone's getting their stuff out. So determining sentencing under Minnesota law, basically this means, and please, Commissioner or others, if I say anything wrong, please correct me. So I want, I'm just a guy, you know what I mean? Under Minnesota law, you do 2/3 of your time in prison and you do 1/3 on supervision. So if you have a 12-year sentence, you do 8 years in prison and you do 4 years under community supervision. And under determinate sentencing, you can be the best person, you can be the worst person. You get 8 years in prison and 4 years under the community. Okay? So this is partially where work release can and could and should come in. The work release maximum under Minnesota law is half the term of imprisonment. And because you do 2/3 of your time in prison, half the term of your imprisonment is 1/3 of your time. So with that same 12 years, if they change the DOC policy to fit the law, then you could do 4 years in prison. You could do up to 4 years on work release if you earned it, and you can do 4 years on supervised release. So that's the max under that law. And you'll notice that work release is significantly less expensive than prison. So that's also, it's saving money as well as setting you up to succeed. So it's kind of like a double bonus, right? However, like we just said, if you go to the next page, looking at the MRA even has some things that are better than work release in certain types of ways. So on the MRA, if you can earn up to a quarter reduction in your sentence, so from 67% to 50%. So if you have that same 12-year sentence, you could earn up to 2 years off your time, and that time goes away. Okay? Work release, you're still under supervision for that time, right? So that time goes away. And then similarly under supervision, if you are in compliance for the first 2/3 of your time on supervision, that will every 2 months erase 1 month under supervision. And when you're done with that, you still have to register, but you're no longer under supervision, basically. Even better, and this is also really important, something the commissioner also deserves a shout out for, that savings is reinvested back into the system. So there is in fact a financial incentive to improve the process as we go to get more people out. So that's something that we want in general, and that's really great that it's included in the MRA. Okay. So again, that the max then you could do from that 12 years, you can do 6 years in prison and 2.67 years under supervision if you earned as much as you can under the MRA. That make sense? And then lastly, if we combine work release and the MRA, if you have work release in your MRA plan, again, you can earn time off. Half your term of imprisonment is at 4 years, so then you can go and transfer to college, or you can get a real job and you earn real wages, not slave wages. And you can do that, so you can do 4 years in prison, 2 years on work release, and then 2.67 years under supervision. And so that's what we're aiming for everyone to have a chance to earn that. So that, like Matt is saying, on the very first day, you can be like, oh, this is what's in it for you and for this whole culture here. If this happens, okay? If you put in your work. And so that's the goal. You'll notice that right now under DOC policy with the limits work release to 1 year, this last model only applies if you have a sentence that's 6 years or less. And so one of the things that we're hoping happens is that we extend that policy so that people with longer sentences can earn 2 years on work release or 3 years on work release or et cetera, all the way up if they have a longer sentence. And in a lot of ways, people with longer sentences are the people who need more support, right? So, yeah.
So one piece about the longer sentences for work release, I think back to a friend of mine, Eric Koskela, who was in prison, who worked on with Joseph Spann, some friends of David Hodge. Shout out to David. They were working on a proposal for lifers because they were thinking, hey, our money, when we get out, if we only have 12 months of work release, they did the math. They were like, so even if I save $1,000 a month for 12 months, that's only $12,000. But I've been locked up for 30 years. And so it's like, I kind of need like some money for a car. I can't just buy a cheap car because then it's going to break right away. Then I'm going to need to fix it. And they're thinking through this stuff, which is amazing because, I mean, these are people that have been locked up since they were 15 and they're going on 40, going on 50. And so trying to relearn the system and things like that, they were, when I was in the hallway of Unit 54 in Moose Lake talking to Koskela about this at about 10:30 at night, we were talking about how much challenges there are there. And so those are some of the reasons why we're articulating a longer work release. Because, for example, for some of these guys that have a 20-year sentence, hey, let's look at a longer opportunity of transition. And so it takes a long time to define that. It takes a long time to implement it safely into the community, and we recognize that. But in this meeting, we are asking for that consideration and for that time for planning to be invested.
One last thing. Thank you so much, Matt. One last thing is that currently lifers are excluded from the MRA. That's something we're gonna want to work on next year, and hopefully the commission will work on it with us. Because, you know, lifers are so important for how prison works, and they're the ones who often are the most positive people making things positive in prison. And so we really need them to not be cut off of these things.
Mm.
So I think now we're gonna pass it to Jamila.
Jamila,
And if you want to come stand over here so people can, well, it's up to you. Tell us how you want us to do it. Okay, so that people can hear you. And just to be clear, the commission did respond to our proposals, and this is in part what.
Requested that work. On your response. Our collective. Our understanding, you are against the work of being built. It's our understanding that expanding the work release to the level we would like to see would be too expensive and difficult to administer. It is our understanding that you want well-developed and thoughtful policies for all involved, in contrast to how the recent First Step Act was executed and planned. It is our understanding that you agree work release is critical for the structure and support needed for softer landing, specifically for those who have been incarcerated for long terms, those who have had challenging terms as it relates to mental, behavioral, and disciplinary conditions, and those who cannot get access to SUD or sexual offender treatment programs. It is our understanding that the DOC is implementing a massive expansion of higher education with the Pell Grant restoration over the next 18 months, in addition with assistance in work release placement, therefore significantly expanding work release opportunities. Has there been any misunderstandings with what I've stated? Okay. So taking the commissioner's email into account, there are some thoughts and questions that arise that we might all consider as we collectively plan on the opportunities brought by the MRRA for work release. First one, how can work release be used to make MRRA more effective? For example, work release is already a very safe program, and we agree on the high and realistic expectations for early release. So in regards to this effectiveness, would it be more fair and effective if everyone has a chance to earn it? Also, what can we learn from the work release expectations already in place? In addition to the MRRA, there are very few options for early release that increase safety, just work release, CIP, CIP, and medical release. For most people, earning work release is by far the best option on top of the MRRA, and one that gives them incentive and reentry support. This is especially important for lifers who are currently excluded from the MRRA. We hope more early release options can be created within the next legislative session, and that the DOC will help. A projected increase in prison population threatens the prison's ability to have the staff and programming to make the MRRA succeed. So what might we consider how we safely reduce prison populations to prevent this? So lastly, we agree that we want to be planful in MRRA retroactive eligibility to support its success moving forward. And the freedom interest of nearly 1,300 people seems important too. How can we balance this? Two suggestions to consider. We ensure that the MRRA credits for supervision, which the bill already has clear standards for, are implemented August 1st, 2023, thereby significantly reducing supervision caseloads to allow more people to come home. Secondly, provide a temporary standard to earn those MRRA release credits. This way, those that qualify for earned release between August 2023 and January 2025, when the policy will be in place by the DOC, and have their earned interest and freedom respected. This should include access to CIP and work release. We wonder too if this is an opportunity for the community to uplift returning relatives to ensure their success. Let's have the last question. How can the DOC and our coalition collaborate in making the expansion of work release be cohesive within the structural planning of the MRRA? And that is all I have. Thank you.
All right. So now we're at our proposed solutions. So if everyone wants to see this document, it's the one right here. Let me just screen share, sorry, so people can see the summary here for people who are virtual. So yeah, and you'll notice that the summary on the slideshow is slightly smaller, but the big page has the facts. So the first thing we'd like to ask the commissioner to pledge to do today, and obviously we know that some pledges can be done immediately, and some pledges they say, hey, yes, I want to do this, but it might take some time. But the first thing we like the commissioner to pledge to today is to support the increase in the work release budget in the Home for Good bill that's currently in the legislature. In that bill, it would add $15 million to work release. That got significantly shrunk in the omnibus process. And as the Commissioner of Corrections, as opposed to Paul, he has a lot of voice over what Democrats do around public safety. And also he has a direct line to the governor. So we'd like to ask him to support that expansion so that as opposed to it being somewhere between 500 and 2 million in expansion, that again is at that $15 million level. If it's helpful, we have one suggestion that maybe we take 10 million from the projected increase in prison population and instead make sure that the MRA retroactiveness reduces the population so that people are earning their early release on the MRA. And so that we don't actually have to have more money in the prisons for more people because we can take those people out. So that's one request. The second request is that we shift the exclusionary criteria in work release to eligibility criteria. So we're not saying don't think about people's risk factors, but we're saying tell everyone on day one that they have a chance to earn this. And this is really in line with kind of the philosophy the commissioner's been bringing to the DOC, which is this idea of person-centered work. So that we want to focus on the person and not on putting people into categories. And so we also want to do that with how we're setting the policy for work release. And as the MRA is coming in, we're hoping that they will change or reform the policy around work release. And that's one key way. We did notice in your email that you mentioned that folks who have ECRC hearings and might need treatment in the community might be included. And they're currently excluded from work release. So we're really enthusiastic about that. And we thank you for already thinking ahead on that. There's also a lot of different other ways people are excluded from work release. I'm going to just list them because people in prison told me I had to list every single one. Absolutely. So yeah, thank you, Heidi. So people who people who didn't succeed the first time in CIP currently are not eligible for work release, even though it might be years later, and they've shown that they could earn it. People who have what's called a very high MnSTAR score, which is a formula based on who they are. I don't know if people saw it, but there's someone incarcerated who sent around an article about how the MnSTAR as the only criteria holding people back is a big problem. It's particularly hard because people don't have enough time to earn it if they have a shorter sentence, so they just get stuck. We also know that the MnSTAR is, quote, more effective with white people than with Black people. So using a racist standard is the only thing that's keeping someone from accessing an early release program is probably something an administration like Paul's probably doesn't want to have as a thing. Mentioned non-citizenship, people with immigrant detainers or the threat of them are not allowed on early release programs, even though they remain supervised. People who want to interstate transfer can't get work release now, which doesn't make sense. If you want to have savings to go to Oregon or wherever, it would be good for you to have that rather than just be dropped out and try to figure out how to get home to your family. People who have ever done escape attempts. And I know that sounds like, oh, well, surely that should be a restriction. Lots of people who have, quote, escape attempts, it's a miscommunication or something happens or they miss a curfew and they get listed as absconding. And so there's a lot of, yeah, exactly. There's a,
No, I mean, that's.
yeah. Thank you for that.
Somebody else they had a cell phone in Stillwater minimum, and just because he had a cell phone, it was escape attempt.
And so we see the way in which categories get used that aren't necessarily person-centered. And so obviously someone like Miss Barbara should have to explain, if you have an escape attempt on your record, you better explain it when you're applying for work release, right? But if it's I put on the wrong jacket like that, that might not be the thing, right? Okay, I put. Wow. Thank you so much for
Ashley,
sharing that.
Did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, my name is Ashley. I did 8 years in prison. I was in every facility except for Oak Park. 6 years into my sentence, I applied for work release. And because my MnSTAR score, I have a violent crime, would never drop below 3. I came into prison at 3. And 8 years later, I was still at 3. Because of the current policy, I wasn't able to drop below that. And I would like to see this expanded out to people. I know there's a lot of people that are just sitting there because of time.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. Also, people who have multiple person offenses with the same victim or ACRC hearings or notification. People who have other charges are not allowed on work release, as opposed to making sure that those other charges get dealt with while they're in prison, while they're waiting to get work release. So that seems like, yeah, exactly. All that should be addressed while you're in prison, right? So those are all things. There's also a thing where people with violent crimes right now are being told that they have to do 60 days in minimum. And that's preventing people if there's not beds or if they're being refused or if there's a line. And that's also an unfair standard because the policy right now just says medium or minimum. So there's also some kind of hidden standards in there that need to be addressed. But we got the point. We want to be person-centered. We want everyone to have a chance to earn it. Third thing, we want, like Ms. Mila suggested, that we retroactively apply the MRA. The compliance credit seems clear. And we're hoping we can work out some way of supporting people to get out in that in-between area before they have an individualized plan and there's a set schedule. We're definitely willing to wrap our arms around people coming out or encourage community to do that if there's some way of making that happen. Similarly, treatment is probably the biggest backlog right now because you do treatment right now, as you know, Commissioner, working to change at the end of your sentence. So you get held to do treatment when you're supposed to be on early release or where you could be, and then you can't do them both. And so we're really excited about the work to front load treatment. And we also want to make sure that because there's a huge treatment backlog, that gets addressed as part of this implementation in. So that people have a transparent standard, like, hey, if I have a low or medium treatment mandate, I'm never going to get treatment in prison, how it stands right now. So how do I make sure that I can do it on work release or that I can still, get out on these early release programs with that? 5, we want a commitment to create a task force to plan how we implement work release at half the term of imprisonment and to pilot that next August. So we want to have the policy moved to fit the law, and we want to create a broad-based task force that you would select, as well as community partners and all the people that we need to make that successful. So we ask you to set that up. Just a couple more things. The other thing is we want to make sure that this is an opportunity to set people up to succeed and to get people invested in working to support each other. So one of the things that we suggest is that the prison creates jobs for people in prison to be mentors to help people succeed on their MRA and work release plans. And we think that can be a really important part because often case managers, unfortunately, not every case manager does their job. A lot of them don't. And if people don't know what they're missing, they don't know what they don't know. So making sure that there is people who are employed in every unit to help people succeed in their plan, to know how to access options, and to also be bridges to community because we know how important that is. We also would ask that the DOC sponsors appropriate organizations to hold regional gatherings for people who've been in prison, for programs, for others to get together to support people coming out, and also reach in to mentor and support people in prison, because we know how important that is. And we know that if we build that into our planning, these things will be much more successful and people will come out in supportive community. And similarly, we want to designate staff for that. We're also open and would love your thoughts on how the community can help more to make sure people succeed in these things. Last quick couple things. We want to make sure that both the MRA and work release are disability compliant. I have a friend right now who was refused work release because she has a traumatic brain injury. She had a vocational program for that. They refused her because they said she wasn't working in prison, and they weren't accommodating her in prison. So we need to make sure that these also apply to people who are disabled. Also, that there's opportunities for people who are elderly and can't work full-time jobs or can work part-time jobs. And then finally, we need to look at a couple more invisible holes. And we've been getting multiple requests to end the bridge program, which forces people to work for less than minimum wage as they reenter, especially when there's jobs. So we really think that we should reinvest that into a real jobs program that's paying real wages, or to pay trainings that will set people up to succeed. So that's our total set of recommendations. And finally, I'm going to pass it to, where is she? Tia, on the calendar. And then we're going to hear from the commissioner. And then Walt. Yeah. You gotta be, yeah, stand up and be loud.
Yeah.
David, we cannot hear her.
So I'm just gonna read. You guys already have it on the paper, but I'm just gonna read to you what I'm saying. So tonight, what we would like from you is to come together and draft a timeline for our proposed solutions. And that's exactly what they are, solutions to a problem that we all know is happening, and we're just collectively coming up with ways that we can help the community and our community members, family members and loved ones, and, you know, potential taxpayers, you know, because a lot of people, you know, they come out of prison and they're getting jobs, you know, in 3 months doing IT, making 100K. So we need those people, you know, out here paying taxes too. So, right? Swear. Okay. So we're trying to set this, this first draft, initial draft of our timeline with our proposed solutions. And if you have any reasons why this would be, well, there would be a roadblock, or that while this wasn't work, we would like to come back to the table and go over those with you so that we can make it feasible. We're very, very interested in identifying the areas in community partnership to support and create better solutions. Today alone, I've looked up some programming for people coming out of prison, and I think I've seen like 34 programs just today alone that they have available. So, and that's without the money. So just think if we poured money into that, what we could really create, you know. By April 12th, which is coming up real quick here, we're going to send you or we'd like to send a draft framework for a work release expansion task force, and our way to involve work release expansion and Home for Good coalition with the MRRA implementation groups, excuse me. So
We'd love a suggestion from him.
we'd love your suggestions for sure. We're open to hearing that and collaborating because, you know, you're an OG in this game. You've been around a long time. You know what's up. And, you know, we've been community members and alive a couple of years. So we kind of know what's up. So we're both experts in our own arena. So everyone's bringing, you know, fruits to the table, you know? So, okay. So by by April 12th, we'd like that draft framework drawn up. By June 14th, which is the next meeting we're hoping to have, we'd like to confirm the plan for the MRRA including that retroactivity. Also treatment access, we'd like that plan ready by August 1st. So June 14th, we're going to confirm our plan for the and hopefully including that retroactivity, which is very important. And then we'd like treatment access by August 1st. So people eligible for the early release with the MRA by December 2024 can also benefit from the work that they've already done. So for our second line on the June 14th, we'd like to co-create a common framework to move forward on expanding this work release program. We want reports on plans, exclusions, thicker support, structure, including potential community partnerships brought on by coalition, disability, minor violations, access, et cetera. So this will obviously be done with lots of education on what's going on. So we want to implement that and then come back to the table as necessary to decide what will work, how can we make it work, what won't work, and how can we frame this in a better way to make it accessible for the most amount of our community members. Yeah, that's where we're at. We believe in you, we know we can do it. Sorry? Sir?
Hold on. Thank you, Tia.
That's what I was, well, and then the commissioner, can you pass this to Walt?
I'll certainly speak loud enough. So with that being said, Commissioner, and we certainly are aware that your constituents are a tough crowd and you're in front of them quite a bit, but this room too is your constituents. We are your constituents. So with that being said, which of these proposals will you commit to today? And the second part of that question would be, what general timeline will you set for implementing them?
My turn. It's great that you gave me like until the 12th of April and June and August. Now decades long.
You can do what help.
So here's the thing. I mean, we have this session that we're gonna be coming back to. There's gonna be conference committees coming up. I just to be really clear about it, I want to be absolutely transparent. As it works, the way this works is that the community's voice in this means a lot. The reality is, and I've had this conversation with constituents that includes other system constituents who are saying to me, I'll just talk about community supervision as a for instance. They would like to see, as opposed to the governor's recommended amount of money being 40 million, they'd like to see it 80 million a year. And my response to them is I support the governor's recommended budget. That is the position of the executive branch role. And so, we do have an increase. It's not nearly what the increase was that was requested. And the point of, do I have sway with the governor? Oh, to a degree. But remember that the governor has a range of interests across the entire state enterprise. And I will just say that, your voice in terms of those legislators, those conference committee members, when they get set, have a huge role. And so, I just want to be clear about that because I don't have the ability to make those decisions, those trades independently, to switch. We do anticipate seeing an increase in work release funding. A big chunk of that really trying to move and create these pathways for folks who are in higher education and want to be able to transition, whether it's, and I shouldn't say higher, it's pretty post-secondary education across the board. So that's, that's one of the big areas. So we'll have some conversations, but I want to be really clear that that's not an easy lift for Paul Schnell commissioner to make that decision independently, and that community voice with those legislators has far more sway, I will tell you, than my voice does. I mean, that is the bottom line. And in terms of trading, arguing, negotiating against myself, which is one of the alternative proposals here. I can't do that because we also have expenses that we have to cover, healthcare contract and all those types of things end up having implications. And so I can't negotiate against myself. And that becomes a reality. Now, again, I'm not saying, I don't control this. At the end of the day, the folks, that conference committee is going to be the ones who decide what that budget's going to finally look like, and that's going to be sent to the governor. That's how it works. So, you know, I think I owe you honesty about what that looks like. I'm fascinated by the work release and MRRA possibilities. Here's the thing. Right now, I understand the concern about, you know, August 1st and then implementation of MRRA. The whole notion of what the standards are to earn that are not as clear to me as they are, it sounds like, in the statute. That's one of the places that, for me, I think fair play is for people who are incarcerated and for everyone is having a sense of clarity of what does it take to earn that incentivized release, be it work release or MRRA, whatever that is. And that to me is really grounded in that individualized program plan that every person has. And that should be based upon what that person's needs as they have identified it. And you know, we've looked at all the things that have resulted in some of the challenges that they've faced. And that individualized program plan, that becomes, that's the pathway that leads you to earn incentive release. And it should be clear, like, these are the things I have to do. These are the goals that get set. And if I do those things, this is what can happen. And so, you know, I'm interested in looking at the work release option as a way to look at some possibilities, in particular for some of the people who may have more challenges, require more supports, and have longer term sentences. Because to me, that is one of the places where there can be some real benefit. We also are looking at ways of how do we use work release if we can't meet a treatment need while somebody's in, can we work release them to treatment or to get them into that with a halfway house, wherever that may be, and do outpatient treatment. We hope to be able to expand. We are expanding the amount of treatment capacity in general because we've changed the way we look at people and evaluate people when they come in. Many people, not many, but there are a good chunk of folks who complete treatment prior to their sentencing with the hope of avoiding having their sentence executed, being sent to prison. And the way it was historically is that we said, it didn't matter whether you did treatment. Because you weren't in the community that long post-treatment, you were going to have to do treatment in prison. And that obviously created challenges around capacity. So one of the things we're doing now is really focusing on the individual needs of that person and taking into account those types of treatment programs that people may have been involved in. And we may end up doing things like having folks doing some aftercare when they're in, or whatever it may be. So you're not going through an entire residential treatment program if you don't need that level of service. So we're really trying to streamline, make sure we get people into programs. And so the challenge is, how do we make sure that there is clarity for everyone? Because right now, there is no personalized, individualized program plan for anybody. I mean, there is a broad sense, high level, but oftentimes it's what you do or what you may choose to do or not choose to do that as you move along the way. What this does is it establishes absolute clarity. And I think it does speak to one of the things you're talking about, that you work this plan, you do your plan, we have some ways to be able to manage some challenges that folks are going to have along the way. Those things are going to happen. But you earn, that there's clarity. But we have to be in a place where right now we're still working through things like the needs assessment that people are participating in is one of the things that we've just been doing some piloting on, and have some really great experiences, really excellent feedback from the folks who have been participating in that process, and now working with these multidisciplinary teams to establish these plans. And it sounds like it should just be easy, but it's not that easy to make sure that there is clarity about this. And that's right now where a ton of work is being done. We, as it relates to, we finalized this self-reported assessment that people take online. They do it themselves. And it provides, it's really their information that they're sharing. And then it results in an assessment summary report. And the cool thing about it is it's their information. It's not ours, it's theirs. And it comes back in a formulated report that then we sit down and talk with them about, and then ask those questions. Like, what are the things that you feel you need to have and be in a better place around in order to avoid coming back here? And the things that you need to do to avoid coming back here are the very things that ultimately result in incentivized early release. And the one thing for me with MRA and my big push around MRA is that it is sentence reduction. It's not just extending the term of supervision. Because we know that long terms of supervision, this is why we did probation caps at 5 years, generally speaking, has diminishing returns after a period of time. And so that was really one of the key goals. So I think there is a way and a place for us to look at this integration with work release. I think we're going to see changes. We're already working on making work release available to folks who have high MinStar scores. And again, the one of the key things is it's about individualized program. That means that it's about what does Paul Schnell need, not what applies to everybody. And that's a key distinction, but it has to be written with a level of clarity so that it's fair for the people that are inside. And there's a should be a relatively reasonably high standard that's realistic. And that's the part that takes, that's really going to be key to this, so that there isn't a setup. If you're inside and there's not a setup to the public that we said, look, we're going to deliver on this, and they have it make a difference and then fail. So that's the work. And there's a place and a voice for this group, for people to be involved in those conversations. So, do I think that we're going to, I can give you responses to these things by April 12th. But I want to be honest about what that is, and about the fact that I'm committed to finding ways to work together to do things. But we also have to make sure we're speaking the same way. One of the legislators called me and just said, hey, if the bottom line is, why don't we just take money, put it in work release, because it's so much cheaper than it is to be in prison. It's not so much cheaper to be in prison. No, it's not. I mean, $90 a day is the placement cost, period. And then you add the staffing costs on top of that. By the time you look at the overhead things, the run work release, you're not talking about it being that much different. And so there's I'm not saying there isn't benefits of people being out in the community, and that's something we have to look at. But we have to make sure that we're talking the same language, and that becomes really important. And just pulling dollars, switching dollars out of the prison side into the community side sounds like it's an easy move, but there's an element of that that's admin overhead, right? That you take the actual cash cost of incarceration versus the cost of just having that building standing, the X number of people it takes to run it. Though you don't realize the benefit of that savings that quickly. It takes time. This is exactly what happened with the juvenile, the juvenile programs when we saw juvenile detention centers. Their populations were halved, and they didn't realize that savings for a considerable period of time after that, because some of those costs just are built into having this facility. Again, I'm not making excuses. I'm just sharing with you that we have to make sure that we're truly looking at where the savings is and can be realized. To me, the savings is realized when we talk about reducing someone's sentence. That's the place where we realize it. And yet having work release as a component of somebody's transition plan, even their MRA plan, is fine, but it has to. We're saying that MRA is an earned incentive release program. What I'm hearing the conversation about work release is that it should also be a part of the earned incentive program. That's the case, then the standards better be the exact same, right? And having clarity about that is going to be really important.
And that's the goal of building them into those plans. So that it would just be one plan and not two.
It should be one plan, because you can't, if you haven't earned it, it's hard to plan for work release on top of MRA release.
Exactly. That should be one
Unless
plan.
you know what it's about. And but those plans that there's some work involved.
Commissioner
Okay.
Snell.
Yeah.
So
So
you used
after
one
Thomas-
phrase that struck me. The phrase you said with regard to diminishing returns. And you also used another that comes up quite frequently when I re-review your proposals. Administrative overhead cost. And everything that I read with fresh eyes, because at first I was kind of starstruck by you. I was very happy to see you. I felt like a fool. But at any rate, after I reevaluated, say for instance, your proposals about reinvesting in education in the school, you want a massive expansion of the Department of Corrections itself, rather than reducing the budget of the department. You're trying to increase it at every level. And then when you say the work release situation, we're aware of people who actually implement work release, and it doesn't require a whole administrative overhead, which when you implement that type of policy, what happens is, the returns are diminished, and you get less money when you hire a bunch of guards and administrative Department of Corrections officials to oversee and administer a policy that doesn't need all of that. And that's how I feel about that, Mr. Taylor. And all of your expansions of the DOC, I play with numbers. I love them. And I look at them very closely, words too. And I don't like to be looked at condescendingly. As you did the last time we spoke, and you brought up when I handed you the documentation about work release. And then I know Miss Rich at the prison, and she called me. See,
So I just want to take a pause for a second. Tommy, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for letting me share that.
We are 15 minutes over time. I want to give Paul an opportunity to possibly respond to Tommy. And then beyond that,
We should set the next.
I think we should really look towards our June 14th meeting with everyone here. In addition, I would ask for our organization, IWalk, and the commissioner's organization to please do your part in allowing us to know when the committee meetings are happening.
Conference committee?
The conference
Exactly,
committee.
yeah.
It's kind of challenging for individuals to identify those things. We can commit to doing our best. We'd also like you to help champion some of that information sharing and just when the committees are for folks like us to organize. And so beyond that, I want to just offer an opportunity for closing.
Maybe you can respond. I think he was about to say something. We should at least talk briefly about next steps, so we make sure what the steps are. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay, so Commissioner, then Tia, and then David for next steps.
Well, so I'm just gonna make it, the reality is, have we asked for some significant expansion in our budget? Absolutely, 100%. And when you look at that, where that money is being invested, it's really in education. It's in a whole variety of the service side of the department. And because we know that if we're gonna deliver the program stuff that allows people to earn these incentives, then we better be able to deliver it. There's a implied content in that. And that's really where our growth and our investments are.
Shouldn't that same money be invested in workers that come from the communities rather than hiring more Department of Corrections staff? I think that's the problem that I see.
So basically, we don't want the prisons getting better, okay? We want the people getting better. And you know that you don't get better, not even in your career, but in real life, or in the job capacity. We don't want to invest more in the prison. We're trying to invest in our community because where our risk lies in each other, leaning on each other. So just a couple of thoughts that I had that I wanted to say really quickly. We're in this for the long haul. So we're not putting fire in your feet like, tell us now. We want to work together from now on. We want to cultivate with you and your people that are behind you, us and the people that are behind us. There's 10 people behind every one of you here today. We're just the ones that can. So we want you to know that we're just the long haul. We want a collaboration because it's for the betterment of the community, for the betterment of society. Also, that conference committee that's on our mind now. We want to be a part of that. We want to support you, trying to support us. And I do think that you do care. So I would like to see that in some paperwork also. And then you're talking about this assessment that's being done. Yes, there's an assessment. If that assessment is an ADA compliance, then is that truly an assessment? Like, are there people with master's degrees that are coming up with this information to be able to ask people these questions? Because it's not really even informed by an expert. If it's not ADA, if someone is on the spectrum, if someone has some type of syndrome, they're not even able to complete this properly, effectively.
How many languages are they in?
Exactly. So we're saying that we beg to differ that assessment is accurate. And we're also saying that we beg to differ that those MinStar scores are actual and factual. And we would like some type of oversight. We would like checks and balances because we want to support you guys in doing the best job that we can do, but not at the detriment of our community members who we'd love to see working, paying tax, paying for the roads. We want to get them back to work.
But I just want to be clear about one thing,
Yes,
that prior to this administration,
yes, sir.
these meetings didn't happen.
We know.
And so I
you're
just,
the one. You're the one.
I'm just want to be clear that we're there.
Thank you so much
We're
for your time.
sitting.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and thank you for being on the right side of history. But now we kind of want you to help us help the community in a bigger way. And I know that money is a number one factor, and we're not saying we want all your money. We're saying we want to reallocate funding because we believe in our community members and our family members, and we believe that they're not the safest when they're in the system. They're the safest when they're at work. Somebody said their son had 9 kids. He has 9 kids. He needs to be home feeding those. He needs to be at work, being able to feed those kids. You know what I mean? And enrich their lives. Like they said, they don't want them coming back to the system. So there's things that we can do. There's small steps that we can take individually and huge steps we can take collectively. And we're going to be there right by your side, or we're going to be having heels. You know what I mean? Just encouraging you in the best way, strongest way possible, that you're on the right side of history and continue to do so. Continue to be a part of this change. We think that Minnesota can be, on the forefront of changing, society for the better. And we want to implore you to work with us, to have some type of timeline to make this feasible because we believe in it and we believe in you. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
David, if you want to talk about maybe some next
Quick
steps.
So, so we heard from you that you get back to us by on those proposals by April 12th. Appreciate that. And it sounds like we should also make sure how we can work together is in that. So you can kind of outline where and how you think that overlapping. Also, one thing that is obviously pressing is the retroactivity folks for people who don't have the plan. So I would request that if we're rolling that plan out, that we start with the people who could be eligible within that window before January 1st, 2025. That makes sense? So the people who could earn early release before January 1st, 2025, be the first people we target for making those plans so that the work that they've done is included. We could also talk about a temporary standard. We could talk about different things, but let's think about how are we respecting the work that people have done in a way that's fair and transparent. And then I guess the last thing is, does that June 14th meeting work for you?
I don't know, probably.
Yeah, check it. Yeah, right now.
Okay,
Okay.
so do we need some answers or?
Yeah, I think we're.
Oh, Brother Wayne.
I think we're. Yeah.
Okay, everyone. How are we gonna close? What are we gonna do? Who likes, who wants to say a very
We
brief?
could take a
close?
picture.
You know what? Lori James, I'm picking on you.
No. Should we take a picture?
We could end with a picture. Everyone on Zoom, we're gonna send you guys off. Have a great night. We're gonna take a photograph. Oh, no. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the meeting. Tommy, can we get a let's say goodbye.
We'll be in touch. Please hit us up, particularly if you have loved ones.